Dear ladies and gentlemen, welcome to one of Naseej Academy's webinar series. In the beginning, I would like to congratulate you for all the new events that we faced the past months, and also I would like to welcome you for being with us along the past years in Naseej Academy series. This series of webinars that's sponsored by Midad. It's aimed to share knowledge, ideas, and reflections on topic of interest, new trends, and rapid technology in many fields, mainly the fields of learning, knowledge management, digital transformation, and libraries, culture, institutions. These new trends, I am sure that all of us having an effect on our daily work and daily life. Dear audience, in English culture, it says that the eye is the window to the soul. Also, it says, where the eyes go, the mind follows. In Arabic culture, we said, العين تتبع قبل الرجل, eyes follow before the feet do. In today's webinar, we will not only let eyes follow, but also we will follow the eyes, track their movements, and analyze that the seeking for what benefits we'll get if we follow this movement. As we live now, the digital age with the effects on our life, most of the people increasingly rely on online sources to obtain health information, make healthcare decisions, and manage their well-being, and other also action that we all think about it or even take action regarding. Understanding how users search for or read or interpret online health information, therefore there is important area of research. The traditional methods such as surveys, interviews, and questionnaires provide valuable insight into user perceptions and experiences. But they often cannot capture the real-time cognitive processes involved during information seeking and evaluation. Eye tracking technology offers a powerful solution by objectively measuring where users look, how long they focus on specific content, and how their visual attention moves across digital interfaces. By analyzing such behavior, library and researchers can gain deeper insight into what exactly user information processes, strategies will go. Also the attention and decision-making processes. And last but not least, the interaction with online health resources. Our webinar introduces the use of eye tracking as a research tool for understanding online health information behavior. We all will learn the fundamentals of eye tracking and the eye tracking devices, explore common gaze, data metrics, and measurements, examine current trends in eye tracking research, and review practical examples of how eye tracking has been applied to investigate online health information seeking, evaluation, and use. To talk about this topic, we are delighted to have for the second time, and for sure will not be the last time, Dr. Su, the Associate Professor at the Department of Information Science at the Catholic University of America. Also, she have a research areas in user information behavior and interactions. She has current research projects include topic on AI literacy and AI use. She's awarded with faculty fellowship for Center for Teaching. Also, she has excellence on research project on artificial intelligence literacy in higher education institutions. She presented a lot of webinars and research paper. And finally, she has already an effort, academic effort, in the artificial intelligence and the higher education. I will not take too much time because I know that we are hungry through our mind and eyes, by the way, to get information from you, Sue. And I'm sure that after you finish your presentation, we'll have many questions from our respectable attendees. And as we used to do in Nasiej Academy webinars, we will receive it written, and I will manage this one and share it with you. Please, Dr. Sue, we all have our attention and also focusing on what you will share with us about the benefits of following the eye tracking, especially in the research vibe and also in the library and cultural center. Go ahead, Dr. Sue.
Thank you, Dr. Matawali, for really nice introduction and really nice overview on eye tracking research. I also want to thank Saeed Ali for facilitating the webinar and Naseej Academy for inviting me for this wonderful opportunity. As Dr. Matawali introduced, we're going to talk about eye tracking today, and I'm going to cover what eye tracking is and what types of eye trackers there are and what you can do with them. I'm going to also introduce a little bit about the gaze data and measurements. Not everyone's very familiar with what they are and how they what they can measure. So we'll talk a little bit about that. And then I did a survey of research that is adopting eye tracking, and that gives you a good idea of how eye tracker is used for information behavior research. So I want to introduce that for you to understand better on use of eye tracking for any kind of research or information related observation. And then I'm going to introduce a few case studies that I've conducted, and that will give you a good sense of how eye tracking data can be used for the case of health information behavior studies that I've conducted. So hopefully all together that will help you understand what eye tracker is and how you can use eye tracking data for any projects that you're considering. So let's start with eye tracking and eye trackers. I don't know how many of you actually have any experience with eye tracker devices or eye tracking data. But we use, in information science, we use this a lot for understanding users and their interactions with information in an interface. So it's very closely related to improving interface design. So I'm going to start our discussion with interface design. So user interface is sometimes the only thing that people see when they interact with any kind of information systems. So so they don't really need to have full understanding of what's happening in the back end, but they kind of understand the whole service based on how the interface is designed. So so this makes it very important to have a good design for your interface to present data and help users to interact with information easily. Now it becomes difficult to do a good interface design because now we have very diversified types of interfaces. Previously, it was just based on the command line, but now with the graphic user interfaces going into more handheld devices with smaller screen sizes, and more advanced types of interactions. For example, like using your fingers to interact with interfaces. Sometimes multiple people can interact with the same kind of interface together. Sometimes you don't even need to move or click. There will be sensor-based interactions. Sometimes voice-based interactions. So there is more diversified interactions that can happen with different types of interfaces we have now with advanced technology. Thinking about good design. And this is something that we've been discussing for a very long time in terms about how we can design our interfaces better. So I want to give you a simple example here. With these two door pictures, you can easily understand how you can open and close them. So the first image, you can easily understand that this is a sliding door, and you can just push them to left or right. The second image with the doorknob, you can easily tell that you grab it, push or pull to open the door. Sometimes it's not always as you would expect it. Sometimes the door itself may not be easily recognizable. Sometimes doors may be open in the way that you didn't expect. So it all depends on how the doors are designed, where the doorknobs are positioned, what kind of doorknobs you have. And depending on that, you will have different understanding of how you should be interacting with it. So whether you push or pull, grab the knob and open it, slide them. It all depends on how you put your doorknobs, how you design it, where to put it. So this is the simplest example of providing a good design. Often when we talk about interface design, it all means that it needs to be user-centered, it needs to be universal design. We focus on how users can easily understand what they can do with the interface without any learning curves or instructions. And that is the most important part of it. And the challenges and also importance of design comes from the differences of every individuals have their previous experiences, environments, types of information you deal with, their education backgrounds, their technology, all that can factor in terms of how people would expect to interact with interfaces, and all that needs to be thought through in making a good design for your interface. And again, because the interface can be the only window for people to interact with information when they use information systems, this will be a critical, good design will influence critically when in terms of delivering good user experiences to the users. Let's talk a little bit about eye tracker. So eye tracker, as the name indicates, it tracks your eyes, and the device will recognize your gaze movement and detect what you are seeing. So basically, when you relate this with interface design, the main interest would be what interface elements draws users' most attention. The interface space is limited and you try to deliver certain amount of information. So there are factors that you want to highlight. There are factors that you want users to recognize. And gaze movement data will help you understand what people see and what they don't see also, which is also very important part of understanding users' behavior. And another aspect of it is the order of items that people look at in the interface space. And sometimes that can be an important factor to understand why people see certain things and why they don't see certain things. So eye tracker devices started with very heavy devices that are attached with sensors. So often it's attached with monitors. Sometimes you have to ask your participants to wear something so that you can identify their eye movements and their gaze movements. From monitor-based eye tracking devices, now the technology has evolved and there is more flexibility in terms of what kind of devices you can use. So there is more remote options. So for example, smaller devices or devices that you can attach with any kind of devices like the one that you see on the right bottom for detecting interactions in a handheld devices like smartphones or tablet computers or glasses that participants can actually wear and do activities as they do in a real life settings. And there are some, and those are some devices that can be integrated into different settings and can be used for purpose of your research. So there is many options than before. Mostly we were designing experiments that are done in a lab setting. Now people are wearing glasses and going out to grocery shops and and observe how people shop at a grocery store. So more types of data can be detected with different types of devices we have these days. So it's not only information sciences using eye tracking. There's many different areas that's adopting this method for their research activities. Of course, human-computer interaction research overlaps heavily with our area, and they do a lot of website and system evaluation using eye tracking. They do a lot of simulations too. I've seen eye tracking study using driving simulations, which you actually can see from top right image up here, which is doing a driving simulation and see their driving behaviors, what kind of signs they look at, how certain navigation signs affect their driving habits. So all that is related to human-computer interaction research. Eye tracking is also adopted a lot in business, especially for marketing strategies. They evaluate the advertisements, the product design, some usability testing. They also use it for consumer research. So what kind of information people look at from the product package, or how should a store be laid out to do a better marketing, or what kind of information people actually look at from an advertisement. So all that kind of question can be answered from eye tracking data for marketing research. In medical and psychology area, eye tracking data became a valuable aspect of it because of understanding users' cognitive process with their gaze data, which is not always identifiable from other types of data that we have from the traditional research methods. So they also use it a lot in medical and psychology area. In education, they use eye tracking for researching learning effects. So when some materials are provided, does that impact users or students learning effects? And they try to see how the educational materials should be provided, how the lesson should be presented, and how does that work well for educating students. And eye tracking can provide valuable data for that aspect. Okay, so now that we've talked a little bit about eye tracking and its use in different research purposes, let's take a look at the gaze data and measurements. What kind of data there are and what kind of measurements can you collect from eye trackers? Eye tracking data actually provides so many data points that you can use for different purposes of research. So it is also important that what you are trying to see, clearly identify what you are trying to see, and based on that, identify what kind of gaze data you want to use. Especially related to interface elements or interface design, identify which interface elements you are trying to look at, and how they are recognized. And also sometimes you can also identify the design layout and what is more useful for users. Some of the actual measurements include gaze points, fixation, Z-case. Those are very popular ones. Gaze points indicate what users actually looked at. So it's like the point of places that users gaze actually stopped by. And fixation is where people took a look at for a longer time. So usually it's in milliseconds units, so it should be really short time, 100 to 300 milliseconds. But people usually pass by the elements when they look at it, but if they stopped and looked at it for a while, then it's identified as fixation. Fixation is an important measurement for information science research, particularly because it is considered to indicate users' attention on certain part of interface. Z-case is also a very interesting measurement. It shows eye movements between one fixation to another. So it tells you what people looked at and then where they go next. And that is showing you their attention flow and the sequence of items that excuse me, people looked at on the interface space. The next one is looking at fixation sequence, or it's often called gaze paths. And this is looking at the order of attentions that people took. And as you can see from this example screenshot, there are numbers. So you can see what they looked at first when this interface is presented, and then where they followed. And this is important for system designer and interface designer because this is where you can say that images draw people's attention, or certain color draw people's attention, or maybe certain icons. And it's collectively, you can see that majority of people looked at this area for the, first, and in what order. And looking at the order, you just identify that people actually looked at what you want them to look at, and that's the key aspect that you want to identify. The data can also be visualized, and we often use heat map or gaze plot. And this can be either a static image or sometimes animated image that can be produced based on the data. because the gaze data is all timed based on users' interaction during the session, it can easily be animated as well. Heat map is represented with the color. If it gets darker, that means that people looked at it more. And if it's lighter, then there was less attention. So with this example screenshot on the right of the screen, it is Google search result. And oftentimes we say that people gain attention on a search result in an F shape, and that's where this gaze data contributed in terms of understanding how people interact with search results, because they only look at the first two results with more attention, and their attention fades out as you go through down the list of the search results. So even though Google may be producing thousands of search results, people tend to pay attention to first few only to find the information that they want to. And that also this is one of the reasons that people try to put their pages up high on the rank for their search results. And this kind of gaze data helps us understand users' behavior and users' interaction patterns, and that makes us as information providers change our strategy in terms of how we present information to users. One more thing related to data measurement, we often identify what's called area of interest, or AOI. This is especially when you, this is helpful when you have specific area of interest that you want to analyze or investigate. So often you identify the sub-region of the presentation and then see actually people looked at it or what kind of interactions it had with other parts of the presentation. So if you look at the example of the screenshot here, the left part of the image is the advertisement of a Nokia phone, and then on the right side, you can see that area of interest are identified for the model name, the image used for the major image in the center used for the advertisement, and there is some slogan, text, logo of the company, the product image, and through the eye tracker data, you can identify what was paid most attention to. And of course, for the company, they have specific interest. They want to sell the product. So this will tell how effective this advertisement was in terms of delivering the information that they want to distribute. So as you can see, there's so many types of data that you can collect from eye tracker, different types of measurements there are, they provide to you. And so I kind of got interested in how eye tracking research is being done, especially in the information behavior research. So I looked at the recent 2 decades literature and try to understand how they were adopted and how they were actually used for research, and what kind of measurements were used and how they were analyzed. So I looked at literature from 2004 to 2023 from multiple databases, and there were a lot of them that were retrieved, but we were focusing on the studies that are actually using eye tracker device to collect data. We excluded literature review studies for that reason, and we were only focusing on information behavior studies. And after all that filtering, we ended up having 103 articles to analyze. Based on this, we analyzed the trend of the research using eye tracking. throughout the year, you can see the pattern that goes up from earlier year to the current year. More researchers are adopting eye tracking as a research method, especially for information behavior research. More papers are published for that reason. We also looked at the countries that produce this research. Majority were coming from USA, North America, but a lot of countries in Europe are also adopting eye tracking study, as well as Asia. More recent years, Asian countries were also getting interested in using eye tracking in their research. In terms of measurements, and I've introduced already that there are many measurements that's available from eye tracking devices. You can see because there are so many options, you can see that in many studies, they tend to adopt multiple of measurements. So if you look at the left side graph, the number of measurements adopted per study tend to be 3 to 5. So people not only focus on just one measurement, but they adopt multiple to understand every aspect of users' behavior. And that typically is the case for majority of the studies. The right table presents what kind of measurements were actually used. And as you can see, the fixation is one of the important measurements that, as I mentioned already, and gaze paths also, trying to understand which paths they take to look at different information in the interface space and those are the most popularly adopted measurements for information behavior research. Eye tracking studies usually have to become an experimental study because it involves participants. You have to invite people in different settings, whether they actually go out to the world or grocery stores, or they come to your lab and do the activities in a session. There are people involved. So understanding how many participants should be in each study is an important factor to make sure that your research results are valid. And so that's why I looked at how many participants there were for different studies, and it seems like the main trend is having participants from 10 to 50. As you can see, the spike on this part of the graph. But you can also tell that there are studies that have so many participants that goes over 200. So I think it really depends on the needs of the research, but you certainly have to have above certain number of participants to make sure that you're reporting a valid data for your research project. We also looked at the adoption of previous theories, models, or framework, because in information behavior research, they are some discussion that we lack some theories and models, and we don't adopt them a lot in our research design. And there are some papers that researchers that argue that we should. So I also looked at it because when you do an experimental design, the design is really critical, and whether people actually adopt, use previous models or framework into their experimental design, that makes your research stronger. So we looked at it, realized that not many studies are actually adopting theories or models, but that doesn't mean that not every not every studies are using them. There were some studies that were adopting some of the existing theories and models to design their study. Of course, because we were looking at information behavior research, so the popular theories that were adopted was related to information thinking theories and information search behavior theories. Some of the theories that were relevant was that are coming from human-computer interactions, psychology for cognitive understanding, and some learning theories. So we could see that those were also used for understanding users' behavior and try to adopt them for designing their experiments better to relate their data into understanding users' cognitive process and learning process. Okay, so I hope this will help you understand how eye tracking is used in general information behavior study. Now, I want to introduce a couple of research that I've conducted, and both study focus on analyzing eye tracking data for health information on Facebook, and I'm going to focus more on data research research design and data analysis part, so that you understand how eye tracking and its data is used for a research like this. So just briefly give you the background of the study. I'm interested in understanding health information behavior, and I selected social media as a platform because it's used a lot in health information dissemination. 60% of U.S. Health organizations and providers use social media to disseminate health information. So this is a popular platform already for health information sharing. Social media also allow user engagement. So people provide social support, and they also create and share additional information. So there is user engagement portion as well. That makes social media an interesting platform for health information dissemination. And Facebook is considered to be the most used social media for US adults. And there is, of course, other media like YouTube and Instagram that's used more popularly for other populations, but we were focusing on US adults, and there were higher number of users for US adults with Facebook. So we were looking at health information sharing on Facebook, mainly because health information can be more personal, and sometimes people find it challenging to disclose some of their health conditions because it can impact them socially. So, so understanding that kind of characteristics with health information, we were looking at health information in terms of their source information, where that health information is coming from, and then how they actually would consider interacting with them in terms of sharing information and consuming information. So we looked at this in the perspective of some of the sources with the credibility level, or whether it's coming from already known sources or unknown sources. We also looked at whether they would engage more with more personal relationships. So with that, the way that we designed our study is, of course, it's going to be an experimental study using eye tracking. We recruited 64 Facebook users, adult Facebook users. we were specifically using Facebook pages because that tells who is managing this page clearly. So 4 types of Facebook pages. One, CDC, a government page, AMA, American Medical Association, so medical professional page, US News as news media page, and Health Digest as health community page. So those are 4 different types of sources that we're looking at. And we selected different types of health topics. And some of them were general health topics, how you work out, what do you do when you get cold. And there were some more disease-specific health information, like how you do treatment for cancer, what kind of symptoms you have for certain disease. So there were more disease-specific health information, and we designed the study mixing all these together to understand how people behave differently with different sources and different topics. So the eye tracker device we used is Tobii T120. This is a device that is monitor-based device. The participants do not have to wear anything, so they have more flexibility in terms of moving. And we were trying to make a natural environment of an office. So you just have a desk, a simple setting of desk and computer in a closed setting. Because users do not have to wear anything, there was less restriction on users' movements, and they were more comfortable in participating with the session. For the data collection and analysis, we used the gaze data analysis software. Since we were using Tobii device, we were also adopting Tobii software, Tobii Pro Studio. It is used for both designing the experimental session and for the gaze data analysis. So for data collection, we designed the top screenshot of the image is the Tobii Studio interface for designing sessions. And those small squares are indicating different screens that people will be looking at. And so you can kind of arrange the screens that people will look at. And sometimes it can go to websites, and sometimes, you just have your own set interface to present to the users. The Tobii Studio software will collect the gaze movement data, and it can you can download the raw data, but it's very complicated data. So you can also use the tool to analyze to a certain level. Or sometimes you can use the visualization that it provides. So for example, if you look at the bottom part of the images, it presents the heat map based on the gaze data collected. So that kind of visualization can be helpful as well. The Tobii Studio also does the screencasting, so the recordings are available for each session, so you can also look at them to understand users' interactions better. So our major question was which elements actually gain users' interest most. And when we say interest, it's where users' attentions go. And all the elements that were introduced in the Facebook screen, we identified some of the AOIs, area of interest, into 4 areas. So source information, post information, post content, and user engagement. So the source information is mainly coming from the banner, the about section, user accounts and history of the page. And the post information is mainly who created the post when it's posted. The post content usually includes the text information, image, or link. And user engagement is mainly through the number of shares, reactions, number of comments, and the actual comments users posted. So you can see from this screenshot how all these area of interest has been identified. On the top, you see the CDC banner information. For the actual content here, image and link and the contents, the text is identified. Bottom here, the user engagements sections with all the comments and number of reactions. With that, we identified that people look at actual post first and most, and then interestingly, they looked at user engagement, the comments very carefully, and there was a high interest in the banner too, to identify whose Facebook page it is. So they actually check what it is, who's managing the page. So that was the number percentage of the attention that people actually paid looked at most. And this is the graph version of what's been just presented in a image in the previous slide. You can see that through the numbers, the post content area of interest gained the most fixation counts, which means they gain most interest. And also post information, like who posted it and when it's posted, gained least interest out of all four areas of interest. And you can also see that separately, the comments got really high attention, and as well as the banner information to identify whose Facebook page it is. So those are where people had most interest and least interest. This is a visualized heat map of the same screenshot, and you can see that obviously people looked at the contents, image, and the link information, which is the content information or the content itself. And there was some interest in the comments and some interest in the banner, and less on the other parts of the Facebook page. You can also look at the gaze path, and you can see the dots moving through the Facebook page, and so that presents also an order. So you can see that people looked at the banner first and then moved to the post content. When the red dot gets larger, people spend more time on it, and then they move to the comments. So even though they had high attention in the contents and the comments, but they checked the source first. So that's why the understanding the order of the gaze path is also important, because that gives you different angle of the information on users' behavior with the interface. So we were also interested in how people react on unknown source. So based on our pre-survey, people knew these, they know CDC, they know American Medical Association, they know who US News is, but not many people actually know who Health Digest is. And it presented that because of that reason, they looked at the source information of Health Digest very carefully, because they want to identify who they are, what kind of organization they are, whether they can actually trust what they post. But at the same time, they did not look at the post that they posted on their Facebook page carefully compared to other sources like the government, professional organization, and news media. So their credibility, trust, how much they trust will impact on how much they will actually pay attention to the post. And so it kind of represents the important relationship between the source credibility and the consumption of the information presented. We also looked at posts with image and without images. And as you can see, the blue bars are with images and the orange bars are without images. And you can see that the people paid more attention to the content itself, the text, when the image is not presented. And of course, you can kind of assume that because there is no eye-catching image, but people pay more attention to text when there is, other distraction with image. Image gets immediate attention. You can see that from Gaze Pass. So that was something that motivated my second study, which I'm going to introduce to you soon. So from this study, we looked at the actual content and its quality is important for health information. And then people tend to look at the text when image is presented or not presented, and also they verify on the information through the source, and then sometimes they check the comments to interact with users, and that is an important feature of social media. So we found that very interesting that people actually look at users' comments and try to understand information from it. When visual information is presented, that engage people in terms of immediately in terms of gaining their attention to the post. So I did already mention that my second study kind of drew from the findings of the first study. We were interested in looking at actual format of the health information, especially looking at the effects of the text and image presentation. So for this study, we recruited 49 adult Facebook users, used the same eye tracking device, and with the same analysis tool. We collected 36 Facebook posts with different variations. The one that has text-only image and infographic text with the images that includes text. And then we looked at, we did conduct a cognitive test afterwards to see if they remember what they saw or they understand the information. So we did recall and recognition tests, and the questions were constructed based on the posts that were introduced to the users. So the types of posts that we looked at are the text-only without image at all, text-only post. The second one is the one that presents image also, and that is image without any text in it, and it may be associated with the text presented on the post, but the image itself is just an image. The third one, we found a lot of infographic images posted for health information. So in this case, there will be a separate text in the post, but there will be some text involved in the image itself too. So you can see that the graph introduces some explanation along with the image in it. So these are 3 different types of formats we looked at, we saw different patterns, different viewing patterns with these posts. The ones that only has the photos received more and longer fixations to the text because the image gains their attention, but then the image doesn't really deliver any information. So people immediately after seeing the image, they go to the text portion and read the text. When the image includes some text, the infographics, they look at the images longer and pay more attention to the text inside the image. So when those are compared together, especially with the cognitive outcomes with recall and recognition test, you can easily tell that overall participants have better recognition score whether there is an image or not. Better recognition score than recall scores. But then when you look at the infographic results, infographics have higher recall and recognition scores overall. And then the images and text only has, it's comparable. So when the image is not meaningful, we found that it doesn't do much in terms of delivering information, particularly related to recall and recognition scores. So we have the consistent patterns legalis of various formats. You know, recognition has a higher score than recall. But you know, you can kind of and other changes like image types, image purposes. We looked at the captions of the image and captions of the link, the length of the text, and they didn't really affect much on how people react with the information. So altogether, this was an interesting outcome for us because the Facebook post with infographic gained most outcomes from the cognitive test. Images will definitely gain users' attention. So any kind of media that's associated with health information may gain users' initial attention, but it's less effective in terms of recall of information. And the text in the image should be informative so that people actually can get some information for recall results, better recall results. So together from the first study and the second study, we found that it was an interesting outcome to understand the social media, especially Facebook layout, and it gives a better understanding of how people interact with health information in a social media setting, and highlights some importance of highlighting the source information, giving some options for users to interact with other users, and use of image or text in the image for infographics helps better delivery of health information to the users. So, altogether, I just want to emphasize that the gauge data that's collected from eye tracker provides information that is the types of data that cannot be collected through other channels. And if you consider traditional research methods like surveys and interviews, and those are kind of in a way curated information that comes out from users, and they tend to think of how they should be answering, and gauge data is different because it automatically measures what they see, and sometimes you find out something that you may not be finding out from other types of methods like surveys and interviews. So eye tracking data provides direct evidence of what interface and elements users look at, and where they pay attention to, and this can directly impact on how we make our strategy in designing interfaces and also presenting information to the users. And that makes the important decisions for effective delivery of information. Data collection using eye tracker expands the types of data that you can collect, but it also limits you in terms of the measurements that can be collected, because you have to rely on what eye tracker provides to you. So it's important to consider some methods that can collect multiple data and adopt multiple measurements. And we've seen from the literature survey study that many studies adopt multiple measurements, and they are not always coming from eye tracker. Sometimes they have survey also along with it, or interviews after the eye tracker sessions. This is because even though you look at what people look at, it's hard to interpret what they were thinking. So it's good to have them all together, designed as a mixed method study, to have a better understanding of their cognitive process, and that can be helpful to expand your study in better understanding what impacted users' behavior when they're interacting with some information. So my conclusion would be that eye tracking definitely allows you to do more with the device and the data that it can provide. It expands your capability of understanding users' thinking process and actual behavior interactions with interface. Helps you understand their behavior better. So so it gives you more potential of expanding your research further. So I hope this will help you understand what eye tracker can provide to you, and perhaps you can consider it as a method for your future research to expand your research scopes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue, for this very interesting. Actually, the time is passed very quickly. I assume that also with our attendees, because it's very interesting, really, topic, and the way that you presented was also very interesting and attractive as well. So thank you so much for this interesting, as I said, that and outstanding presentation. It showed practically, really, the value of tracking users' eyes and researchers as a way to explore their knowledge and intention and needs. And before I move to the questions, and for sure I'm inviting the attendees, as we used to do, to send their questions, and I will try to classify them and this one. I would like to share with you two examples when we arranged for this webinar. I saw that there is two practical examples that already having benefits from this one. The first one, it's about the company that used the tracking technology to study how user interacted with the website, their website. And I think you mentioned something like that. By this company just recording the user eye movement, and they found that most visitors focused on the images and the main headlines while overlooking the buy now. So buy now bottom, regardless where it is, it's up or down. So they, the poor placement of this bottom affect about how they can just think about buy this product. So based on the results, they move and change the place of this bottom, and this affect about the ratio or the percentage of the sales, which is very interesting. Also in education, there is a research about that using eye tracking technology to observe how students read educational text. And the results also show that the students spend more time focusing on the illustrations than the lengthy passage of the text. And they often skip some important information without reading it. So this is also affected by this one. So I think it's very interesting to know this one. Let's move quickly because we have many questions we received. And the first one, it's about how accurate are modern eye trackers and what factors affect their accuracy. I think this is the big opening for the question.
That's a very important question and great question. So we usually, before starting the session, we usually calibrate their eye gaze movement, and sometimes it doesn't match up well, especially when they wear lenses or glasses. Sometimes because of the reflection, it may not, the eye tracker device may not be able to detect it clearly. So usually we start with the calibration process and see if the eye tracker can detect the participants' gaze clearly. And that's the first step. And once that's done, we start the session, and sometimes throughout the session, the device may not be able to collect the gaze data clearly, and that also happens if users move their head too much, and then if the device loses where their eye gaze is, then sometimes it becomes difficult to detect them. So you usually have to verify those data once you collect it. So I've had cases when I have to disengage someone because their calibration did not work, their data collection was not qualifying. So usually, even though I reported certain number of participants, usually I have more people coming into the session, and then I just use the data that is valid for analysis. So that can happen. Again, glasses and the lenses usually don't help much. So that can be a factor to consider. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. And I think this question opened, as I said, that the gate for some academic and methodological questions. It's about in your study, and this is directly to you, Sue. In your study, what are the criteria and the methodological approach you use to select the participant in your study? And for sure that is this affect about the results?
So yeah, we've gone through multiple iterations of thinking for participants criteria, but we tried it in a broader way. The participant needs to be a Facebook user, needs to be an adult, and whether they have interest in looking at health information on Facebook setting. So those were the three very broad criteria we had. Later on, we also identified that additional factors could factor in, because some of the participants, even though they may be interested in looking at health information, they've actually not looked at health information in their Facebook interactions before. So some of their previous experience could impact. We knew that from the beginning, their interest in health topics could impact them too. And that was actually asked in the survey, but we didn't see much impact in that because people were participating to a session and they were actually given the information to look at. So they were paying attention to it. Whether they will actually look at it in a live session that they're like interacting with Facebook with their own account and in a real setting, whether they would actually look at health information could be different. So and we understand that because a lot of cases, this is one downside you can consider for an experimental study, because you kind of give them a setting and ask them to perform within that setting, which may not always be the same as the real world setting. So we try to be as similar as real world setting, and then also try to come out with an interface that is no different from actual Facebook settings. Those are the kind of efforts you can consider when you're designing an experiment. we made sure that they are Facebook users and they have interacted with Facebook for a long time. So that was one thing that we made sure so that they understand the basic layout of Facebook interface, because we did not want to want their the interface is not introduced for the first time. So if they're exploring the interface, that gaze pattern will be totally different. So we wanted to make sure that they are already familiar with the layout, so that what they're looking at is actually based on their interest. So that was one thing that we selected carefully based on the criteria.
Yeah, excellent. Because actually, this question just triggers something in my mind about also the sample or the people just participating with you about the clarity of their eyesight of and how they are trained about just going to something. Because I think the long experience of just having this looking way to the Facebook and this stuff for sure will be a factor of affecting this one. Also, this is there is some interesting question about did you find that difference between the male and the female feedback about this one? I think this is something, or maybe we can think about the mood. So if the researcher under stress, when they are looking at the healthcare information, just to look at this piece of information as a preparation for the exam, comparing with the way that they are looking at the same information and they are just relaxing and just gathering data. How do you think about these questions?
Yeah, that's very interesting point. In terms of the difference between the male and female, we didn't see major differences from the behavior, the gaze movement itself, but we found some differences between the topic, the seriousness of the topic. So we introduced the general health topic and the disease-specific topics, and there were different patterns between them when reading patterns actually, right? So that actually made the difference, not really between male and female. I'm thinking that could be related to maybe their mental process as well. From the post survey, we found that one of the participants had relatives who has the disease, and that made that participant read the information more carefully. So, and those kind of factors could be something that impacts on users' behavior, and we couldn't capture that thoroughly throughout, because unless the participants mention the case, we cannot really detect it. But some participants mentioned, I got interested in this topic because of this, and I read it more, I spent more time reading it. And so those can affect the different patterns, or maybe spending more time actually to understand the information presented, that could actually impact on better recall. But we couldn't explicitly gather that information clearly, and maybe that's something that can be done in the future study. That was something that we also noticed from the survey, post survey we had after the session. So great question. Yeah.
Because I think there is other question related. I try to classify them together. About do you think that there is I try to because it's in Arabic somehow. Do you think that if there is some problems with the eye, or maybe by nature there is a significant characteristics for the eye, could affect about your results?
Interesting question. I think I cannot really identify like a clear answer for that, because like I mentioned, I've only had participants who were successfully, able to calibrate their gaze detection, and also we were successful in collecting their gaze movement throughout the session. So it may be a selective population of the people with no issues with gaze detection. And there could be some downside of using eye tracker because of the way that where the data detection is coming from and how we use these devices. So this is kind of a balance that a researcher should be considering in terms of the value of the data that you can collect versus can it be representing all the population in your research topic. And if the condition of the eyes is an important factor for your research questions, maybe this is something that you need to think carefully and design your research based on it. In my case, I was looking at more general information behavior of adults' health information interactions on social media. So this did not impact much. But when you are doing research design, this is something to consider carefully. Yeah.
Perfect. I can tell that our attendees just go to the heart of the presentation. So the question went like this. So
important question. Yes.
Yeah, and I think it's opened the horizon for you for more studies about this one. Maybe this question is because it's really about the clarity of the eye or something like that. But on other side, we received related question from Mrs. Tessam, and she said that if the attendee having an anxiety or addiction somehow, this could affect about the movement of his eye. So I think you answered this one, but if you need to give more elaboration for Ibtisam, it will be great.
Yeah, I mean, anxiety can be at different level. Do the participant gain anxiety during the session, or do they have anxiety as a regular symptoms of daily lives? And that could be different factors to consider. I think addiction, you mentioned addiction, right? Addiction could be an interesting aspect because, we see a lot of younger generations these days addicted with smartphones and these kind of media platforms.
Different gadgets.
Yeah, and how they actually gain information and consume them is something that everyone's interested in. And I think that there are some studies related to addiction in different fields like education, psychology, and I think I don't know how much eye tracking data can provide interpretation on this, but that could impact different ways of the browsing the information that's presented. We've also compared, we didn't see much differences between short text and long text in a Facebook format because it's a short presentation of information anyway on the social media. But I think it's worthwhile to compare maybe a longer news article or a paper versus like short forms and see how they are different. Yeah. That could be an important and interesting observation to look at from gaze data. So there may be some impact, and the way that we designed our study didn't really impact the anxiety. We didn't have anyone who expressed anxiety during the session. But when you design an experimental setting, that is something to consider. And we make sure before going into the session that if they feel uncomfortable continuing the session, they can stop the session anytime. If that happens, maybe that could impact on eye movement patterns, observations that you will gain from the data. But I'm also considering that could be another factor to consider as your measurement into the study, and that may show you different results and comparison of the results, especially with addiction. That can be a very interesting research question too.
I think that this is the value of our academics. They are raising many factors should be considered. Like I can see that some of our academics said that how about the people having this natural blinking frequently and this stuff. This is also should be. So I think
Yeah.
from my experience in the methodological area, your criteria for picking the sample is very important, just to make sure that there is no bias in the results. So this is something by default should be considered this one. We have a question. Say that, okay, you did your research on Facebook. Do you think there will be a significant difference if you do it on other social media like Instagram or whatever it is? And another question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. That's a great question, and I was actually thinking about it too.
He has a second part, but let's answer the first part first. Go ahead. Yes, please.
Oh, yeah. So there are different types of social media format that deals with different types of media. So for example, like YouTube or TikTok, they are more based on videos, and Instagram more based on images. So because we were looking at we were looking at the impact of the formats between text and image. We thought that this would be interesting because I know that there are so many people who are gaining health information from YouTube as well. So looking at different video might be presenting different types of gaze movement, especially for video media. You don't really have to move your eyes around, you just look at the video and the screens will be changing, right? So it will be a little bit difficult to analyze the data because of the consistent changing information within the video media, but it would be an interesting observation to look at, especially with very short form videos and the types of information they provide in it. Yeah.
Format of the information.
Yeah,
excellent. Thank you. Let's move to another question it's a technical one. Would you tell us the difference between the screen-based and the wearable eye trackers? Because I think this maybe cause some difference in this one. So I think you mentioned it during your presentation, but it's good just to make more focus on it. The screen-based device comparing with the wearable eye tracker.
Screen, are you talking about the device?
Yes.
The monitor-based versus more remote.
Or the head-mounted display.
Yeah. So the types of the study design will be a little bit different, because if you wanna look at in a real life setting and see what they actually observe and get to certain types of information, glasses could be great. Also, depending on the population you're looking at, for example, we used portable eye tracker when we were visiting certain populations like young adults or elder populations, because it's hard to invite them into our lab. So sometimes we go out, take the devices, and then work with them in wherever they are. So so that's another reasons for using different types of devices. Sometimes if you ask people to act like naturally in a real life setting, glasses could be helpful. And if you want to be more strict about the elements on a interface presentation, maybe using the monitor-based eye tracking could be helpful, because you have very specific selection of the interface with selection of area of interest, and that's how, if that's how you want to design your study, then maybe using a monitor-based eye tracker in a lab setting would be a better design.
Perfect. Now let's move to some questions related to the equipment in specific. Mr. Mustafa Shalabi said that how can I get such software, the 2PX120 and studio device, and also he said that he have a device, I think it's an old one, and he trying to find a way that he can get it without what we call it extra cost somehow. And this is the next question. I can move to it, but after you finish this one, how he can get this software and this equipment.
Yeah, I think if you purchase the device and it can be costly if depending on which device you want to purchase, but usually they come with the software because you cannot use the device itself without the software in it. So so usually it comes with the software when we purchase the device. Sometimes you have to make extra money paid for subscription of the software, and it really depends on the vendor and the device that you decide to use. Yeah, so and sometimes the software version can be different depending on the device too. So so you might want to come up with your design of the study first, and then identify the device that can be useful for your research design, and then select the device, and the software will come based on what device you select. And also we usually communicated with Tobii directly, and they usually have great customer services. I'm not really sure worldwide, but I know some researchers using the device in Europe and Asia countries, and they also say that there is some customer services in their countries. So so it may be good to identify the customer services in your area, and maybe get some help for setting up your device.
And as we always said about the cost is related to the return of investment. So if we're talking about a researcher, he's supposed to think about this, how it will help to elaborate or improve his research, or even if we are talking about in the commercial thing, also the company or even that the people supposed to look at this one. Okay, we have a question. It's, I think, a little bit scientific from Dr. Hussein, and I assume that he's his specialization in psychology. I have one question. Since eye tracking data tells us where user look and for how long, but not necessarily why they focus on certain elements, do you think integrating eye tracking with media psychology theories such as selective attention theory and cognitive load theory and so on, he mentioned many other theories, could provide a deeper explanation of user cognitive and psychological response to digital content rather than relying only on the eye tracking metrics? Thank you, Dr. Hussein, for this very, I think, deep question. Please go ahead, Sue.
Yeah, very insightful question, and it's very important too. I did mention that you cannot just rely on eye tracker methods, eye tracker data only, because, you know, sometimes it becomes difficult to interpret why they looked at certain parts and why they interacted in certain ways. So oftentimes researchers adopt mixed methods. And from the research trend study that I've conducted, I realized that people identify measurements not only from the eye tracker, but also from additional methods like interviews and surveys, and that helps them to understand deeper on the data collected from eye tracker. Also, I love the idea of adopting theories from other disciplines, especially psychology and you know, communications. I did mention that that could be one of the area that's weak in information behavior studies. And there's I think there's a lot of potential to be potential for expanding and better understanding the behavior by collaborating with these areas that that was mentioned just because there are theories available in understanding human communications and cognitive thinking, and we can bring them into our area to interpret user behaviors with the information better. So I also think that there should be more adoption of these theories from other areas. But I also see that from the research trends, there is a lot of collaboration among researchers with different disciplines, not only from researchers only from information behaviors are publishing these eye tracker studies. They work with, medical disciplines, psychology, communications, business. So it seems like there is a lot of collaborations are happening, and I think that's great, and that should be done more. So
yeah, marketing as well, and advertising areas, I guess.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for this one. Ms. Sumaya Sadeh, she asking about the challenges that you face, especially those related to the distraction, reach, and other limitation that could be affect the eye tracking technology. So would you just give more insight about this, Sue, please?
Yeah. So the challenges is that you cannot. One of the major challenges
I
that
can tell that you face many of them.
No, it's you cannot conduct an eye tracking study if you don't have an eye tracker. That's one of the challenge that some people who are even interested in it have to deal with. In my university, we have a device that's being shared with different departments. So I know that faculty from biology is using it, faculty from psychology is using it. We share a device in our university together among different researchers. So finding a way to get a good device that fits your research is one thing to tackle. The second thing is that eye tracker provides so many data points, and not everything will be useful for your research. And the gaze movement data is can be so complicated depending on how you see it. So having a clear research question set and have a clear design on your research experiment is important. Otherwise, it can get so complicated after you collect the data. Experiment design itself is not easy. You have to invite people and do all the sessions, and that is time consuming too. And after you collect all the data, if the data is not useful, then you're wasting a lot of efforts and time. So doing a careful design in the beginning is very important. And sometimes it's difficult to recruit people. So having a good target audience is something to consider because again this goes into the careful design of your research. If you identify the audiences that is hard to recruit, then that could impact your research progress significantly. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you for this very telegraphic answer, because we have many questions and we come closer and to the end of our webinar, and we don't need to take too much time from your valuable time. Thank you so much for this one. So the next two last questions. The one is about does the longer fixation always indicate greater interest or better understanding, especially that they mentioned that this longer fixation could be because confusing or because of interest. So how you differentiate between this through the equipment or the program?
That's a great question. Typically, I did mention it as an interest, but longer fixation indicates an attention from cognitive attention from a participant. And often when an information is presented that is interpreted as an interest to read more, right? But it is true if they don't understand something, then they might take more time. And I see some cases from education, when the information that is not in the same level of education, then people will spend more time on it, and they might not really get a good result outcome after even reading the, usually they have like learning materials and then quiz in the education settings. Even though they spend more time reading it, they might not pass the question, right? So the fixation length can be interpreted in different ways depending on how you design your research. Also, the types of information you present. If you're looking at, I did include this factor in my study, longer text and shorter text, and also types of information, general topics, and serious disease topics. And sometimes I noticed that if it's a serious disease topics, people spend more time. And maybe just because, it could be because people want to learn more about a specific disease, or maybe they have to read carefully to understand what this disease is about because of lack of knowledge. So I think when you design these interfaces and the information that you try to present to the users for the sessions, this goes back to a careful design of your research method. The presentation of information should match well with your research questions. And so when you present a long text and short text, what does that mean? And you need to have that clear definition of what you are trying to look at. And fixation itself, if you just look at the fixation as a measurement, it can mean different things, like the question indicates, and your research design should be designed differently to indicate how you interpret the fixation data.
Thank you. And let's take the last question from Dr. Imad Mania. How does the integration of emerging technology, such as the generative artificial intelligence, and online health information platform influence users' perceptions of the credibility of their evaluation behavior? And also there is other question from other attendees related to, can we use this technology in the mobile and other gadgets, the wearable or whatever it's in the hand? So this is the two last questions. And from my side, I will add one question about the future of this technology, how you find it after, not 10 for sure, about 3 to 5 years, because I know that the rapidly evolution of the technology will update. So the first one, how do you think the emerging and the integration of the technology like AI and other technology will affect improving or other side? And the last one, your expectation, your forecast for the future of this technology. Please, Dr. Su, go ahead.
Okay, I'll try to answer everything. So I think it's an interesting insight to consider AI and eye tracking together. And it makes me think if I can get a help from AI when I do eye tracking study for information like video media better, then it could be helpful in interpreting what users see at what point of time, and capture the information that's presented in the video at a certain time of the point. If that can be done, then that would be great. AI can do vast amount of data analysis, so maybe it can be helpful to collectively understand the data collected from multiple participants. So that can be helpful as well. That's just a thought, and I haven't really explored the possibility of doing it. But given that the technology is evolving fast, I can I can see potential directions with that. The second question was trying to remember.
Future expectations, so improving, and the other one is related.
Oh, the handheld device. Handheld device. If you look at the slide that I presented with smaller devices that detects the screen of the tablet, and those are used for smaller devices. The glasses are also used for handheld smartphones. So, so there are ways of observing eye movement for smaller handheld devices. So there is technology for that, and there are options for you to consider. In terms of the future directions, I think the technology is becoming helpful in terms of developing the eye tracker devices in a more simpler setting. So the glasses, when glasses came out, the researchers who use eye trackers were very excited because, you know, you don't have to ask people to wear a helmet or, you know, come to the lab and sit for an hour. If there is more simpler way of collecting gaze movement data, more people can adopt the methodology and use it for their research. So that would be great. Moving forward, I think I hope that there will be more collaboration among different disciplines doing research in the area where we can adopt eye trackers, because even though there can be some challenges and complications in designing experiments, I think it provides interesting aspects of the data for the same kind of research question you can have, and it could answer more research questions as well. So that expands your capability of expanding your research agenda and also answering more questions too. So hopefully more options for devices will give us more ways of adopting the methodology, and also potentials to work with other researchers in different disciplines.
Perfect. And if I can add more things that we can separate the eye trackers for eye moving about other technologies like the face recognition and gesture, especially that is different from culture to another culture and subcultures. So it's integrated, I think, journey for the researcher to just follow up this one and try to interpret this.
Well, in fact, if you look at the technology from Facebook, Meta, and also from Google, they have glasses, and they actually capture what you see with the glasses on. And so if you want to search for a certain item when you're looking at it, it identifies which item that is. So, so there is technology getting integrated into some of the devices that we can use. And that means more ways of adopting it into the data collection and using it for our research.
Yeah, and this will help a lot the people just with having a problem with special needs or something like that. So I think this is also thing. I don't want this webinar, like many of our attendees, to end up, but actually we have a lot of very interesting and informative information. It's not just related to the health information. I think this is open our horizon for different area. Everyone, I think they have their own ideas, and the flow of this clapping and hearts and the thumb up, I think it's a very supportive and also evidence for how this presentation and the whole webinar was very successful one, outstanding. We promise you we'll keep our eye on all what you said and share it with us, because it's something interesting, and for sure that we will keep in touch with you for a new other hot topic that you need to share with us. We do appreciate your collaboration and interesting information, and for sure our thanks went to our attendees for their question, which is, I think, inspired Dr. Su for more other related researchers. Yes or no? So I guess they inspired you with other idea, I guess, the question that we received.
Yes. If there's any interesting topics comes along, I'll hope to meet you all again. Thank you so much for your time and attention. If you have any interesting ideas to share, feel free to contact me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sue, and thank you for all our attendees, and for sure that we are will be happy to have you in the upcoming نسيج أكاديمي webinar. Thank you again, Sue, and take care. Have a wonderful day. شكرا جزيلا لجميع الحضور. نلقاكم في ويبينار آخر عبر منصة مجاد وأكاديمية نسيج. Thank you. Bye bye.
Thank you.
Take care.